One of the frustrating things about trying to figure out when exactly Western civilization began to disintegrate in high gear is that you can't just look at a graph and see it happen. Oh, wait, never mind, it looks like you can. And who would have thought? It would have happened during the most romanticized decade of the last century, a time that boomers everywhere still can't stop talking about and some still think they're living in, the degenerate 60s. Now, when I first saw this scary graph, I was shocked to see that there was one that looked almost exactly like it in every single English-speaking Western country. How could that be? How could every English-speaking country simultaneously experience a shift in culture as dramatic as this? This was way before the internet, and most people weren't traveling to different countries unless they were being sent by the globalists to go die somewhere, like in Korea or Vietnam. So how is this cultural shift taking place in tandem like this? One thing these English-speaking countries had in common is that they were all bombarded with Hollywood movies glamorizing infidelity, swinging, and divorce for a decade straight, right before the uptick in divorce rates took place. Movie after movie, treating marriage as some kind of outdated ritual reserved for suckers and squares. I tried to identify just one culturally significant film that might have had the biggest impact, but really it seemed as if half of the movies made in the 60s were in one way or another outright promoting divorce. It was an avalanche of non-stop degeneracy. If we start in 1960, there was The Apartment, directed by Billy Wilder, that won Best Picture. The Apartment is about a low-level employee who lends out his apartment to the married men in upper management so they can go and cheat on their wives in the city. The whole thing is very nonchalant, and the idea that any of these men should feel ashamed for cheating on their wives or that the women sleeping with them should feel ashamed never even enters the film, not once.
You know, you see a girl a couple of times a week just for laughs, and right away they think you're going to divorce your wife. Now, I ask you, is that fair?
No, sir, it's very unfair.
It's all just a big joke. The whole decade is filled with movie after movie where marriage is cheapened and divorce is as casual as changing jobs. In 1965, a film out of the UK that was nominated for Best Picture, Darling, directed by John Schlesinger, is listed as a comedy, but to be honest, it was just 2 straight hours of horrifying degeneracy. I was genuinely shocked that this movie was made so long ago. And not only that it was billed as a comedy or that it was nominated for Best Picture. Both main characters in Darling cheat on their respective spouses right after meeting each other. The two then decide to divorce their spouses and remarry each other. But then the film's main character, probably the prototype of the strong, independent woman, goes on to sleep with almost everyone she can. She goes to parties where among her rich friends are these adorable sex-crazed homosexuals who try to purchase underage African sex slaves. I'm not making that up, that's in the movie. She travels to France with a man that she's cheating on her new husband with and goes to cross-dressing, drug-fueled sex parties that will give you nightmares. Then, after her new husband finally throws her out, she romps around Italy with her bisexual friend and has sex with even more random people. But then, after the obligatory shot at Christianity, of course, her character ends up marrying a prince. But don't worry, she's not really happy in her mansion with the literal prince, so it's okay. I'm sure that the audience will learn the right moral lesson here, that if you treat marriage vows as merely suggestions and the rest of the world as a sexual playground, you might get stuck in a big empty house with servants and a prince that doesn't quite live up to your standards. Then in 1967, right before the divorce rate really skyrocketed, Hollywood decided to just stop beating around the bush and made a film called Divorce American Style, directed by Bud Yorkin. Now, in Divorce American Style, they decided to cast Dick Van Dyke, who the world knew as the all-American husband from the Dick Van Dyke Show just a decade prior. I mean, I grew up watching reruns of the Dick Van Dyke Show, where he played a responsible father who provided for his child and his homemaking wife, Mary Tyler Moore, but now, in an apparent effort to destroy this example of a happy family, the film opens with a scene where all the men are coming home from work, and we see that the happy home depicted in the Dick Van Dyke Show was all just a sham. In reality, every couple is angry and bitter and only pretending to be happy when they have guests over. Also, as a side note and as proof that the 1960s didn't just ruin marriage, I want to play a quick line from the movie where Dick Van Dyke is complaining to his wife that he spent way too much money on this house so that she could be happy, and he paid a whole...
The house? When did you ever think you'd live in a $49,000 house?
Oh my God! $49,000 for a beautiful home in a great neighborhood. The horror. Anyway, after a trivial fight with his wife, Dick Van Dyke's character meets with a friend at a bar. His friend, after discovering that he's only had sex with his wife and has never cheated, gets him liquored up and takes him to a prostitute because, hey, everyone does it. Dick Van Dyke's character refuses and goes home and tells his wife. His wife overreacts, freaks out, and the next morning is already on the phone with a divorce lawyer. The dark aspect of this film is not only the glib way in which they depict divorced men as being financially ruined by their ex-wives. One of the characters has even resorted to bringing men over to his ex-wife's home that he pays for to try to get her married off so he can stop paying the alimony. Oh, and by the way, it's not her fault.
But it's not Nancy's fault, old man. She didn't write the divorce laws.
It's his fault for having been such a good provider for her when they were married.
Look, I know we're spoiled, but it's Nelson's fault. He was too good a provider.
But that's not the darkest part. The darkest part is the way in which they depict the effect on children is actually being a positive thing. Children love divorce.
I thought kids are positively traumatized by this kind of thing.
Mom, you want us to be traumatized?
A lot of kids at school come from broken homes. Anyway, it's no big deal.
If anything, it just makes your family bigger and more fun with everyone's ex-spouse and current spouses all financially relying on the men, of course, as getting along great. It's all just a big, hilarious joke, guys. After some crazy hijinks and making fun of the financially ruined men, all of the ex-spouses get recoupled up again and are in new happy relationships. They then meet up at a bar where Dick Van Dyke's now ex-wife is hypnotized by some new age boomer shit and discovers that who she really loves is her ex-husband. He was her real true love the whole time. And right then and there, having learned how quirky and fun divorce can be, they go home as if nothing ever happened. You know, like all divorced couples do. These are just a handful of the many, many, many films in the 1960s that normalized and even glamorized divorce. And given that we have the actual statistics, I think we can finally answer the question when it comes to Hollywood. That their art is not imitating life, but instead, Americans' lives and the lives of English-speaking countries everywhere have wound up imitating their art. For Blackpilled, I'm Devin Stack. If you like my videos, make sure you like and subscribe and share. If you'd like to support these videos, you can go to patreon.com/Blackpilled, or you can donate to the crypto addresses below.